welcome to the deep dive. Lately, if your digital feeds are anything like mine, they feel less like information and more like constant storm warnings.
Hmm.
Every headline seems to be painting 2025 as this, I don't know, cursed year. We're seeing these relentless wildfires, wars dragging on, economies doing well, whatever they're doing.
Yeah, tilting precariously feels about right.
Exactly. And systems just seem fragile.
Yeah.
It's really easy to feel buried under it all, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
And it stirs up so much worry,
Hmm.
maybe anger, just this dread. Like the world's more terrifying than it's ever been.
It does. And those reactions, worry, anger, dread, they're completely human.
Yeah.
They're natural responses to what certainly looks like chaos and threat. It doesn't deny the reality of suffering at all.
Right.
But what if there's another way to see it all? A fundamentally different way to perceive this apparent chaos, something that offers maybe a kind of paradoxical clarity.
A paradoxical clarity. I like that. That's really the core question for us today, isn't it?
Mm.
It's like looking at a really complex tapestry up close. You see the individual threads. Some are frayed, maybe some are perfectly woven.
Right.
But then you step back and you see the whole design. And somehow, every single thread, even the messy ones, they contribute to the overall picture.
That's a great analogy. Non-dual vision is a bit like that stepping back. It's about perceiving the wholeness, the perfection, even right in the middle of what looks like imperfection and chaos.
So today, we're diving into this very idea, this concept of non-dual vision, sometimes called enlightenment, as it's presented in our source material. This idea that you can perceive perfection within the imperfection.
Exactly. And our mission here is to unpack that, to explore this, fascinating and paradoxical clarity. And maybe, just maybe, understanding it a bit better could inspire you, listening, to start sensing something similar in your own life, to find ultimately a kind of freedom from suffering.
And we've got some fantastic sources guiding us today. We're mainly looking at an article called Samsara is Nirvana, the Perfection of the Imperfection. It's from the Neve Community for Self-Inquiry and Sustainability, written by Anurag Jain.
Right. And within that, we'll touch on insights from Joan Tollefson's Everything Goes Together, Nothing Can't Be Pulled Apart, the ancient wisdom of Nagarjuna, Peter Brown's intriguing Dirty Enlightenment, Alan Watts, of course.
Can't forget Alan Watts.
Never. And some foundational texts, too, like the Mundaka Upanishad, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Ashtavakra Gita.
Quite a lineup. So let's dive in. Okay, so thinking about 2025 as this cursed year, it's not hard to see why people feel that way when you look at the news.
No, not at all.
Our source mentions things we all recognize, those endless wildfires, the wars, shaky economy, systems under stress.
Yeah, the article specifically points to that Boeing crash in Ahmedabad, the massive forest fires in South Korea, global markets reacting to tariffs, the whole Israel-Iran-Gaza situation.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it feels like, as the source says, news comes faster than breath. One crisis just lands right on top of the last one.
You barely process one thing before the next hits.
Exactly.
And like we said, the worry, the anger, the dread, totally understandable human responses. We are wired to react to threats, real or perceived.
But here's the pivot.
Yeah.
For someone with this non-dual vision, the view is radically different somehow.
Radically different, yes. It's not that they don't see the events, but their interpretation, their relationship to those events changes fundamentally.
So how does that actually work, seeing wholeness when things feel so broken? How does it feel?
Well, Joan Tollefson puts it beautifully in her work. Everything goes together. Nothing can't be pulled apart. She says, when we see the wholeness of everything, it eases the anxiety of that vulnerability.
Eases the anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And she continues, this is a direct quote, "For we know that the whole is unborn and undying, endlessly dying and birthing in every instant, endlessly changing shape, and yet always being this one bottomless moment that never moves away from right here, right now."
Wow. Unborn and undying. Endlessly dying and birthing. That's quite a paradox right there.
It is.
And it touches on that other idea from the source, horrible things, having beautiful outcomes, beautiful things leading to horrible ones. These apparent polarities that just can't be pulled apart.
Exactly. Up needs down, joy needs sorrow. They define each other.
So how do you live like that? Does it mean you just stop feeling things? Become immune?
Not at all, no. Enlightenment isn't about becoming some kind of unfeeling stoic or being magically shielded from life's hits. People with this insight still get sick. They still experience loss. They still feel emotions.
Okay, so what does change?
It's the relationship to those things. You're no longer completely gripped by the push and pull of opposites. pain versus pleasure, success versus failure, gain versus loss. They just don't have the same power to throw you off balance.
Mm.
And this state, this way of seeing, is sometimes called spontaneous samadhi.
Samadhi. Now, I think most people hear that word and think deep meditation, maybe like a trance or something. Is that what we're talking about?
That's a common association, but yeah, it's a bit different here. The Sanskrit helps. Sama means equal or balanced, and siddhi relates to intellect or awareness.
Okay, so balanced awareness.
Pretty much a mind in balance, consciousness that isn't constantly tossed around by duality. So it's not about zoning out in a trance. It's more like an enlightened seeing.
Enlightened seeing.
Yeah, a way of seeing that fundamentally shifts how you relate to everything that happens. Things might still be difficult, even painful, but they don't fundamentally unseat you. There's this deep steadiness that comes from knowing, really knowing, that everything, even the apparent chaos, it all belongs to one single inseparable whole.
Which brings us right to that central, really profound teaching. Perceiving perfection in the imperfection. Wholeness in the chaos. And this isn't just wishful thinking, you're saying. It's rooted deep in these traditions.
Oh, absolutely rooted. It's a foundational insight, incredibly powerful, echoed across centuries. The source points directly to texts like the Mundaka Upanishad. Verse 2.2.11 basically declares it. All this before is immortal Brahman. Certainly all behind is Brahman. All to the south and to the north, all below and all alone stretched out. All this is certainly Brahman, the highest.
So everything is Brahman, that ultimate reality.
Exactly. And Shankara's commentary doubles down, saying, Brahman alone is true, and that all else is only its modification, a matter of speech, a mere name and falsehood. The apparent separateness, the chaos, it's just a surface appearance on this indivisible, perfect reality.
Which is why they say Samsara is Nirvana. The cycle of suffering is liberation, seen the right way.
Precisely. And it's not just a Hindu concept either.
Right, you mentioned Nagarjuna.
Yes, the great Buddhist philosopher. In his key work, the Mula Madhyamaka Karika, he states it so clearly. Chapter 25, verses 19 to 20. Samsara does not differ, even slightly from Nirvana. Nirvana does not differ even slightly from Samsara.
Wow. No difference at all.
Not ultimately. He says, the ultimate nature of Nirvana is the ultimate nature of Samsara. And between these two, the slightest difference, even the most subtle, is not found. So from this non-dual view, the boundary we imagine between suffering and liberation, it's just a concept. It dissolves.
Okay, my mind is officially stretching now. If Samsara is Nirvana and everything is this Brahman, what is this Nirvana or Brahman, really? Is it like a place you get to? A feeling?
Fundamentally, it's the recognition, the deep knowing that reality itself is unborn, uncreated.
Unborn.
Yeah. From our usual perspective, things appear, right? People are born, events happen, things change, they decay, they disappear. We see this constant cycle. Advaita Vedanta actually calls these the 6 modifications.
6 modifications. Okay, what are those?
It starts with asti, just existence. Then jayate, birth or coming into being. Vardhate, growth. Viparinamate, change or transformation. Apakshyati, decay or decline. And finally, vinashati, destruction or death. That's how we usually see things unfold.
That sounds about right. The whole arc of life or an event, it feels so real, that cycle.
It does feel real. But non-duality suggests this whole drama, births, deaths, gains, losses, it's ultimately an appearance, like images on a screen. It's not fixed, separate, independent reality.
So nothing is ever really born. Nothing ever really dies.
From that ultimate perspective, yes. Which brings us back to Joan Tollefson's words. The whole is unborn and undying, endlessly dying and birthing in every instant, always being this one bottomless moment. It's a radical shift from how we normally perceive time and existence.
It really is. That's a lot to take in, especially the philosophical side. But you mentioned earlier, and the source emphasizes this too, it's not really about getting lost in complex philosophy, is it?
No, not at all. That's crucial. It's not about memorizing Sanskrit terms or debating ancient texts, though they point the way. It's much more direct, more practical. It's about looking really closely at how you, in your everyday life, habitually label things. Good, bad, right, wrong, perfect, flawed, success, failure.
We do that constantly, all day long.
Exactly. And those labels feel so solid, so objectively true. But this perspective invites you to question them, to see how fragile they actually are, how quickly good can become bad, and vice versa. When you start doing that, you begin to feel how fluid reality is.
So it's about observing our own judgments.
Observing them, seeing through them, and that's the practical path. It's about finding freedom from suffering right here in how you relate to this moment, not achieving some far-off philosophical state. And this practical aspect is key. When you stop rigidly carving up life into good and bad, gain and loss, you start seeing through this illusion that we actually have control or that we can have certainty about outcomes.
Yeah, the illusion of control, that's a big one.
Huge. Because what looks like a total disaster 1 minute might, down the line, open a door to something unexpectedly wonderful. Or a big success might subtly contain the seeds of future problems.
Right.
From this non-dual view, life isn't following our neat little plans or scorecards. It just unfolds. It's fluid, unpredictable, and somehow completely whole in its unfolding.
That makes me think immediately of that wonderful old story of the Chinese farmer. It illustrates this perfectly, doesn't
Oh,
it?
it's the classic example. Absolutely perfect. Should we recount it quickly?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so there's this farmer in ancient China. One day, his only horse runs away. All his neighbors come over, very sympathetic, saying, "Oh, what terrible luck. This is awful."
And the farmer just says,
Maybe, just
Yeah.
maybe. So the next day, the horse comes back, and it brings 7 wild horses with it.
wow, instant riches.
Exactly. The neighbors rush back, overjoyed for him. "Isn't this wonderful? Such great fortune." And the farmer.
Maybe.
Maybe. Then the next day, his son is trying to train one of these wild horses, gets thrown off, and breaks his leg. Badly.
Oh, no. So the neighbors come back again.
Yep, full of pity. Oh, this is truly dreadful news. So unfortunate. And the farmer? Calm as ever?
Let me guess.
Maybe.
You got it.
Maybe. Then the very next day, the emperor's officials come through the village, conscripting all able-bodied young men for the army to fight in a war far away.
But the son.
They take one look at the son's broken leg and pass him by. He doesn't have to go. So the neighbors are back again, celebrating. "Oh, isn't that fantastic? Your son is saved."
And the farmer's final word.
Maybe.
It's just brilliant. It shows so clearly how quickly our judgment about good and bad can flip and how little we actually know about the consequences of anything.
Precisely. And Alan Watts had a great take on this story. He said something like, "The whole process of nature is an integrated process of immense complexity, and it's really impossible to tell whether anything that happens in it is good or bad."
Because you never know what will be the consequence of the misfortune. Or you never know what will be the consequences of good fortune.
Yeah.
It just completely dismantles our need to label and control.
Exactly.
Now, Peter Brown, in Dirty Enlightenment, pushes this even further, doesn't he? With that really provocative scenario about saving a drowning child.
He does. It's designed to challenge our assumptions about right action. He asks you to imagine seeing a child drowning. Your immediate impulse is to save them, right?
Of course.
But then he throws in a twist. What if you somehow knew this child would grow up to be the ancestor of a terrible tyrant who causes immense suffering? Should you still save the child?
Oof, that's a tough one. What does Brown say?
His answer is fascinating. He basically says, yes, you still save the child. Or rather, your action isn't based on some calculation of future outcomes, which you can't possibly know anyway.
So what is it based on?
He suggests it's about how the energy of reality that is appearing as you is functioning at the moment you pass the stream. It's less about a calculated decision and more about the inherent response arising in that situation. He puts it very directly. You will do what you would do in those circumstances.
So the action happens through you, rather than being solely authored by you with a predictable outcome in mind.
That's a great way to put it. It's not about becoming passive or fatalistic. You still act. But you recognize that the action arises from a vast web of causes and conditions, including your own conditioning, your nature, the situation itself. It's not this isolated me making a decision that guarantees a certain result.
It's like the action unfolds to the individual.
Yes, and this ties into the Advaita concept of the gunas. Remember those qualities of nature: sattva, clarity, balance; rajas, activity, passion; and tamas, inertia, darkness.
Right.
Advaita says that all action is essentially the play of these gunas within prakriti, the feel of nature. The individual self, the jiva, the sense of I am the doer, is actually caught up in this play, but isn't the ultimate source of the action. Actions unfold based on momentum, past conditioning, the vasanas.
And the true self, the Atman.
The Atman, pure awareness, remains completely untouched. Still, silent, free. It's the witness to the play, not the player bound by the consequences.
That sounds so much like the Bhagavad Gita again, that famous verse, 2.47.
Exactly. You have the right to perform your prescribed duties, but you are not entitled to the fruits of your actions. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, nor be attached to inaction. It's the same core wisdom echoing through. Act, but release the attachment to the outcome and the sense of personal doership.
Okay, so if Actions don't guarantee results, and we're not really the doer in the way we think. It begs the question, should we just stop? Withdraw from the world? Become an ascetic? Is that the answer?
It can feel tempting, right? Less
Well,
chance of messing up or suffering disappointment.
it's a really understandable thought, and honestly, a path many spiritual traditions have explored: withdrawal, renunciation, trying to achieve stillness through inaction.
Mm.
But interestingly, the non-dual traditions we're drawing from, like the Gita, generally don't advocate for that. Krishna doesn't tell Arjuna to drop his weapons and leave the battlefield.
Right, he tells him to fight, but with a different mindset. Exactly. The problem isn't action itself. The root of the suffering is the mistaken belief in being the separate doer, the one solely responsible, and then getting completely attached to making things turn out a certain way. That's the trap.
So it's not about what you do, but the consciousness behind the doing.
Precisely. True non-dual insight doesn't paralyze you. If anything, it frees you to act more spontaneously, more authentically. When the sense of a separate me trying to control everything starts to dissolve, what's left?
Action arising.
Spontaneous, choiceless movement arising from the whole. It's not driven by the ego's agenda anymore. Now, this doesn't mean you stop making plans or having preferences. Choices still appear to happen. But you see them as part of this larger flow, this vast movement of life itself, rather than my effort forcing reality to bend to my will.
That sounds incredibly freeing, actually. Less pressure.
It can be.
So how does all this ultimately bring peace? Because let's face it, in a world that often feels like the opposite of peaceful, that's what many of us are deeply longing for, that unshakable calm.
Well, Peter Brown talks about a quiet clarity in recognizing the perfection within imperfection. It's a different kind of peace. It's not necessarily the peace of everything being smooth and comfortable and exactly how you want it.
Okay, what kind of peace is it then?
It's the peace that can accept even restlessness. It's the peace of simply being exactly as you are and allowing the world to be exactly as it is in this moment without needing anything to be different for you to be okay. It's a very deep acceptance.
Acceptance even of the difficult stuff.
Even of the difficult stuff. Think about that wave on the ocean again. The wave rises, it crests, it travels, it crashes, it subsides. It's all motion, all change, driven by winds and currents it doesn't control.
Mm-hmm.
But throughout its entire life as a wave, is it ever, for 1 second, separate from the ocean?
No, of course not. It is the ocean.
It is the ocean, just expressing itself as a wave for a time. It is the ocean in motion. Our lives are like that. We are the whole, unfolding in these particular forms and experiences. Peace doesn't come from trying to control the wave, making it bigger, stopping it from crashing. Peace comes from knowing deeply that you've never, ever left the ocean. You are the ocean.
That is such a powerful image. We are the ocean in motion.
And the Akshavakkra Gita just nails this. Verse 2.25 says, "How wonderful! In me, the shoreless ocean, the waves of individual selves according to their nature, rise, strike each other, play for a time, and disappear." It sees the whole cosmic drama playing out within this boundless awareness.
Wow, so our individual lives, our struggles, our joys,
Yeah.
they're like waves playing on the surface of this immense reality.
Exactly. And verse 2.4 drives it home. As waves, foam, and bubbles are not different from water, so the universe emanating from the self is not different from it. All the forms, all the experiences, they aren't separate from the fundamental reality. They are expressions of it.
It really changes the perspective on suffering, doesn't it?
It does. Which leads to that final penetrating question in verse 3.3. Having known yourself to be that in which the universe appears like waves on the sea, why do you run about like a miserable being? It's like saying, if you know you're the ocean, why are you acting like a desperate wave? It's an invitation to just rest in that knowing.
This has been, wow, a really mind-bending and potentially mind-freeing deep dive. So just to try and bring it together, the core takeaway seems to be that all this apparent chaos, the imperfection we see everywhere, it's not actually separate from a deeper fundamental wholeness or perfection.
Mm-hmm.
And this non-dual wisdom offers a radical shift in how we perceive everything. It's a path to freedom from suffering, not by changing the world out there, but by changing our relationship to it.
Beautifully put. And just to reiterate, it's absolutely not about ignoring suffering, pretending it doesn't exist, or becoming cold and indifferent. It's about developing this capacity to see the perfection within the imperfection, to understand that everything unfolding, our actions, world events, everything is part of this vast, interconnected reality. And peace arises from accepting that dynamic, fluid wholeness.
It's given me so much to think about, and I really hope it has for you listening as well. So here's really a final thought to carry with you. If everything that arises, literally everything, is truly part of one inseparable whole, How might your personal understanding of things like control or success or even failure begin to shift? Not just as an idea, but in how you actually experience your life unfolding day by day.
A powerful question to sit with.
We hope this exploration has sparked some new insights, maybe offered a different lens to look through as you navigate your world. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.